to President George W. Bush's victory in 2000 on the House floor?
Yes, it is.
Isn't it true that Democrats objected to President George W. Bush's victory in 2004?
Yes.
I yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Johnson.
I thank the gentlelady. The irony is so thick in the room today that you could cut it with a knife. First of all, the Democrat's sole witness is this gentleman that comes to us from the Constitutional Law Center at Stanford Law School, where less than 2 weeks ago, the dean had to order mandatory training in the First Amendment to faculty and students after her apology for the debacle of them shouting down a Fifth Circuit appellate court judge. Were you present for that event?
No, I was not.
Okay. Well, and you just told us that we basically, the media networks need to censor viewpoints they disagree with. It's unbelievable. The other irony is that our Louisiana Attorney General, Jeff Landry, just explained to us in detail and put on a brilliant presentation with all the evidence pointing out that there is literally a censorship enterprise now in the Biden administration. And not 5 minutes later, our colleagues over here objected and wanted to strike his testimony as being too objectionable. I mean, we're illustrating the point right here as all of you talk. Many actors in the Biden administration, many of them, have and continue to harass and pressure social media companies to censor COVID-19 content. That's just one of the subcategories here that I wanted to drill down on. That doesn't align with their chosen narrative, because when people talk about the origins or the effectiveness of lockdowns or the mask mandates, et cetera, the benefits of natural immunity, they wanted to censor and silence that, and they did. Through the great work, Mr. Sauer, of you and many others in the states of Louisiana and Missouri, we now know that there was a coordinated campaign of both public and private pressure against the social media platforms. And who did it come from? As you pointed out, President Biden himself, senior White House staff, Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the CDC. They targeted opposing COVID viewpoints. They targeted the viewpoints, folks. If you're watching at home, they volume censored you. They turned you down and they kicked people off the platforms because they said things that went against the administration's narrative. One piece of COVID information that President Biden's administration labeled as misinformation was the belief that the virus originated from a lab in China. We now know that is no longer just a theory, it's likely true, as some of the agencies of the government have had to admit now. Dr. Fauci himself was instrumental in contradicting the lab leak discourse from the very beginning of the pandemic. And listen, everybody needs to pay attention to this. He commissioned a research paper to discredit the theory. Can you please share with us what his interest was in covering up the lab leak theory, Mr. Sauer? What do you think about that?
Thank you, Congressman. The evidence in our case indicates that going back to 2011, Dr. Fauci had been a public advocate in favor of gain-of-function research, that starting at least in 2014, NIAID, under his direction, had publicly funded gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and that in early 2020, when the virus was new, he became aware from briefings from his staff and emails from Jeremy Farrar of the Wellcome Institute in the United Kingdom that there was a grave risk that the virus had in fact leaked from the that institution where NIAID-funded research on gain-of-function on viruses had been conducted, and you see an elaborate plot, a deceptive plot, to try and discredit that theory at that time.
And NIAID was his agency. When he was asked at a White House briefing about this report that he commissioned, he claimed he was unfamiliar with the authors of the study, even though he was instrumental in every single step of its creation. I have a video, if we can play that real quickly. We'll look at it in his own words. Go ahead. All right, well, they're trying to fix that. What Dr. Fauci says there in his own words is that he has no idea anything about the authors of the study, even though he's the one that orchestrated the whole thing. When he was asked in a deposition about his role in suppressing the lab leak origin theory, among other things, he said, and we have another video, it's not gonna work, I'm sure, he said 300-something times that he doesn't recall, he doesn't remember. He isn't the only bad actor. Mr. Sauer, can you please elaborate on the ripple effects of President Biden publicly saying social media companies are killing people by failing to remove COVID information that his party disagrees with?
Evidence indicates that that was a critical watershed in the Biden administration's pressure campaign to attack Facebook in particular, but also social media platforms in 2021. And what you see is these amazing emails right after that July 16, 2021 comment from President Biden that they're killing people, from very senior Facebook, C-suite Facebook executives desperately scrambling to get back in the White House's good graces and assuring them, we will do what you want. We will carry out, quote, what the White House expects of us on misinformation going forward.
It has an incredible effect at chilling the speech of Americans. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Massachusetts.